Hello and welcome back to the Dougie Critchley Football YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in to this video. There is less than a month to go until the transfer window slams shut, people. And today I will be running through 10 bargain transfers your club must complete before the deadline. Bargain, I'm kind of assuming, is around £50 million or so. Let's get into the video. It is clear that Newcastle United do not want to lose Alexander Isak, and in the eventuality that they do, Benjamin Sesko is their priority. However, Benjamin Sesko seems to favour a move to Man United. As it stands, as I record this situation looks like it's going to run and run. I think Newcastle should be looking into some backups in case Benjamin Sesko eventually chooses Man United. And I think they should have a look at Nicolas Jackson. Yes, this might not be a popular one with Newcastle fans, but 31 goals in 80 games for a player who'd only ever started 16 league games in a top 5 league prior to joining Chelsea, I think he's well worth a look. Now, Newcastle fans might not like this. After all, Nicolas Jackson has a reputation as a bit of a poor finisher, and it's not completely undeserved. He's underperformed his XG by 6.9 in his 2 Premier League seasons. That would take his Premier League goal tally from 24 in 2 seasons up to above 30. The only player in the Premier League that has underperformed their XG by more in that time is Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who was recently released by Everton. Nicolas Jackson has been Chelsea's number 9 during a huge period of change for the club. There's been changes in midfield, there's been changes up front, and despite that, he has a fantastic ability to get shots off in different areas too. Last season, he got 45% of his shots on target. The only players to get more shots on target than him, with a higher percentage of on-target shots as well, were Erling Haaland and Yoane Wissa. Yoane Wissa, who scored 20 Premier League goals last season. The basis of that proves that Nicolas Jackson, if he improves his effectiveness and clinical nature, could become a top Premier League striker. He's also surprisingly creative. He averaged 0.17 expected assists per 90 last season. That was better than Matheus Cunha. That was better than Alexis McAllister. It was better than Antoine Semenyo. And 24 goals in your first 2 seasons in the Premier League is no disaster, especially given his level of experience before he arrived. Nicolas Anelka, for context, 23 in his first 2 seasons in the Premier League. Robin van Persie, 10. And look, I'm not saying Nicolas Jackson will ever emerge to be that calibre of player, but it does go to show that given his lack of experience prior to joining Chelsea, I really don't think it's been the absolute disaster that people have painted it out. And look, Newcastle have already missed out on Gyökeres. They've missed out on Sesko if Sesko goes to Man United. They've already missed out on Victor Osimhen. They've missed out on McAtee. They need to shop in that rung below those players. And Nicolas Jackson, already adapted to the Premier League, I think could have a massive improvement at Newcastle in a counter-attacking system that also favours his ability on the break as well. I think Nicolas Jackson to Newcastle, if they can't get Sesko, makes a lot of sense. Stop right there. Are you subscribed, guys? If you're watching this video, come on, get involved, join the community, hit that red button. Next up, let's talk about Oleksandr Zinchenko. Now, this guy really needs a move. He spent the last 3 seasons at Arsenal playing 91 games in that time, which doesn't sound too bad, but in terms of his league starts per season, it's gone from 26 to 20. Last season, just 5. He ended up playing fewer league minutes than Gabriel, who did his ACL in January. Oleksandr Zinchenko needs a move. I think he should join West Ham. Now, I know what you're thinking. Malik Diouf has just arrived from Slavia Prague, the very highly rated left back, left wing back. But Oleksandr Zinchenko, people forget, is not primarily a left back. Only 6 of his 33 professional appearances prior to joining Man City were at left back. He never played at left back on loan at PSV. It's only in the last few years that he's become a left back, and I think Graham Potter should utilise him in the same position that he's been utilised for Ukraine, as an attacking midfielder. Oleksandr Zinchenko is a quite brilliant technician. He averaged 8.1 progressive passes, so passes that go 10 yards towards the opponent's goal per 90 last season. That puts him in the top 1% of fullbacks, and I think that eye for a pass, that ability on the ball, could be really utilised by this West Ham side. Even last season, or across the last 365 days, a period that he actually hasn't played that much football, he averaged 3.5 shot creating actions per 90, so the shot or the pass before the shot, which was the same as Trent Alexander-Arnold, who, yes, played in a more withdrawn role for Liverpool last season after the arrival of Arne Slot, but is still a phenomenal attacking fullback, and that goes to show how vital Zinchenko could be. Look, they've lost Mohamed Kudus. I think they need another attacking midfielder who's got Premier League experience to play behind Nicolas Füllkrug, who I'm backing for a big season, alongside Jared Bowen. And I think Zinchenko feels like a Graham Potter player. I think he'd really utilise his passing, his ability on the ball, his calmness in possession. I think he could be a massive impact player for West Ham. He's only got 1 year left on his contract as well, and if West Ham offered 20 to 30 million pounds, I think this would be a good move for all parties, and I can see Arsenal accepting. In at 8, let's talk about Dusan Vlahovic. Now, Juventus have already signed Jonathan David on that much talked about free transfer. I talked about that in my episode last week, so go check out that as well. Juntali, their sporting director, has also said they want to bring Randall Colomwani back to the club. If they do so, and I know Jonathan David can play in a variety of positions as well, but they really don't need Dusan Vlahovic, who only has 1 year remaining on his contract. I think he should go to Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa lost John Duran in January. They had Rashford and Asensio on loan in the back half of last season, neither of which have joined the club permanently. They need more attacking firepower. And whilst I think it's difficult to argue that Dusan Vlahovic's €70 million transfer to Juventus has been a success, after all, that is the 4th most expensive transfer in Juve's history after Ronaldo, De Ligt and Higuain, he still scored 58 goals in 3.5 seasons, won a Coppa Italia, scoring the winning goal in that final, and I don't think it's been the disaster that people like to paint out. He's scored more than 14 goals in all competitions for the last 3 seasons, and in fact the season before last he was at 18, last year 17, and this is a player that has averaged over 0.6 expected goals per 90 in the last 2 campaigns. In fact, only Retegui and Moyes had a better record in Serie A last season. His minutes per goal ratio for 10 league goals last year was only 11 minutes longer than Ollie Watkins last year, who did have a bit of a downturn after the Euros, but that does go to show that Vlahovic is a goal scorer, and whilst Watkins I think is a much more complete all-round player, can run the channels really effectively, Dusan Vlahovic, in terms of a penalty box operator, running onto through balls, I think could really thrive in this Emery system. You look at what Emery has done with a succession of strikers, whether it's Ollie Watkins scoring 27 the year before last under Emery, whether it's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang hitting 30 and has won full season under Emery, Gerard Moreno scored 30 goals in all competitions for Villarreal under Emery, Cavani scored back-to-back 40-goal campaigns for PSG under Emery. I think he could do a lot with Dusan Vlahovic, and apparently Juve are only looking for around 20 to 30 million pounds as well. This feels very, very achievable. They need a number 9. Dusan Vlahovic is available. It's getting late in the window. Get it done, Villa. In at 7, let's talk about the future of Brahim Diaz at Real Madrid. Now, Real Madrid spent big this summer on Franco Mastantuono, a €45 million acquisition from Argentina, who can play as a number 10 or on the right-hand side. Given the fact they already have Rodrigo, they have Arda Güler, they have Bellingham that can play further forward, they have Federico Valverde that can play further forward, do they really need Brahim Diaz? He only has 2 years remaining on his contract. There are reports, as I film this, that they are working on a new deal for him, but is that a case of sign him up to a new deal to maximise the price with a sale? Would he be available potentially on loan this year? If so, I've got the perfect club for him. Last summer, Crystal Palace lost Michael Olise, and there's speculation that Eberechi Eze could be on his way to Arsenal, though Palace are holding firm as it stands. They've still got Ismail Assar, they've got Roman Esse, but I think they could really do with a player of Brahim Diaz's quality on the ball. Bit more of a tempo setter, bit more of an angle finder, and a counter-attacking threat in his own right as well. I remember during his days under Pioli at Milan, where he went on that 3-year loan spell and played a really underrated role in their title-winning campaign in 21-22, and then contributed 13 league goals and assists the following year, probably his best campaign to date, that he was actually a really, really useful counter-attacking threat. And look, Crystal Palace, they'll be happy with their options so far, but I think Brahim Diaz could make a massive impact there, as he has at Real Madrid in the last couple of seasons. So he was brought in when Marco Asensio went to PSG, and he started 18 league games in 23-24 as Real Madrid won the league. He started 16 last year. This is not a player that's just a bit part forgotten player, which might make you think, do Real Madrid really want to consider losing him? Does Xabi Alonso see him as a key part of their plans? Maybe not, but I think Palace should at least test the waters on this. This is a fantastic player on his day, above 0.6 expected goals and assists per 90. He completes over 50% of his dribbles when he attempts it too, and this is what I love most about him. Palace last year, 17th in the league for possession, 17th in the league for pass accuracy. They really need to improve their ability to obtain the possession in the final third, and Brahim Diaz last year completed 86% of his passes. That's absolutely exceptional for an attacking midfielder that's dealing with the more congested midfield zones with defenders right on him, with midfielders running back. He would bring a sense of calm to Crystal Palace. Look, I think he'll probably sign that new contract at Real Madrid, but would he be interested hypothetically in a loan move to a London-based club? Maybe. I think it's ambitious, but it's worth a shot. In at 6, let's talk about Man United and a player that they should sign. Look, I was fully prepared, all cards on the table, to talk about Patrick Schick and how if they don't sign Benjamin Sesko, I I think he'd be a really good short-term fix from Bayer Leverkusen. Unfortunately, he's gone and signed a new deal. It always looked likely, given the fact that Leverkusen have already lost Wirtz, Frimpong, Tar, Xhaka, of course, too. So today I want to talk about why Man United should look at Lucien Agoume, who is a 23-year-old midfielder currently playing for Sevilla. Now, do not worry if you do not know that much about this player. He really had his breakout last season. He'd been on loan at Sevilla the previous year from Inter Milan. That's the club he joined in 2020 from Sochaux, the club that also created Marcus Thuram and Ibrahim Konate. He went on a series of loans to the likes of Spezia and Brest, but it was really when he arrived at Sevilla permanently last summer that he fully established himself. 24-25 was just the second time in his career that he started over 14 league games. He actually ended up playing 35 league games. He started 24, and in that time he contributed 1 goal and 3 assists. He ranked 9th for league minutes in this Sevilla side. A poor Sevilla side, it should be noted. They ended up finishing 17th. It was a story that went really under the radar over here in the UK, but Sevilla were dreadful. Dodi Lukebakio was the only player in that squad that scored over 4 league goals. So bear that in mind. Sevilla, dreadful side. Lucien Agoume, 9th for league minutes. But despite that, he ranked 1st for passes into the final third, 1st for progressive passes, 2nd for defensive actions. In fact, in the entirety of Spain, he ranked 14th for defensive actions completed, despite ranking 9th for league minutes in this Sevilla squad. And also, he's not just a destroyer, he's not just a passer, he can dribble with the ball too. Last season, he completed 73% of his take-ons. For context, Ryan Gravenberch, who got widely acclaimed for an amazing season with Liverpool, 45%. That is the level that Lucien Agoume was at last year. This was a player that was linked with Arsenal when they lost Thomas Partey. This was a player that's been linked with Liverpool. This is a 6'2" player that looks ready-made for the Premier League. And yes, it's a small sample size, but if Man United were to get ahead of all the competition in the race for his signature, I think it would go a long way to solving their midfield issues. Look, a couple of weeks ago, I profiled Javi Guerra. He'd still be my first choice, but Lucien Agoume for a bargain buy for Man United in midfield, I don't think it gets much better. In at 5, let's talk about James McAtee. Now, this player has been dominating the back pages all summer long. He's been linked to a move to Nottingham Forest, to Leeds, to Eintracht Frankfurt. But I love the speculation linking him with a move to Everton. Now, Everton lost a number of players at the end of the season. They released them, including Jack Harrison. They've been linked with moves for Takefusa Kubo, with Tyler Dibling. Moves that I think will be very, very difficult to pull off. They recently, at the end of July, lost 3-0 to Bournemouth, and David Moyes was calling out the club saying, I need new players. James McAtee feels like a tap-in. I think it's fair to say that for James McAtee, 24-25 was a little bit of a waste. Pep Guardiola decided to keep him at the club, but only gave him 3 league starts. He played 340 or so league minutes. That ranked 24th at the club. That was below Kusanov, who arrived in January, and Nico O'Reilly too. Now, I'm really basing this shout off the previous 2 seasons. He spent the previous 2 campaigns on loan at Sheffield United. In 22-23, he scored 9 league goals, helped Sheffield United get promoted to the Premier League, named the club's Young Player of the Year. 23-24, Sheffield United, dreadful campaign, concede over 100 goals, finished with 16 points, really difficult team to shine in. Is James McAtee Everton level, I hear you ask? Well, even in that poor season at Sheffield United, he averaged 0.3 expected goals and assists per 90, really solid for a relegated side. Last season, that jumped up to 0.7 expected goals and assists per 90, he averaged over 3 shots per 90 as well. He's able to find areas to be dangerous in. There's just too much competition at City, and it feels like Pep Guardiola was going to keep one of Bob and McAtee, and he's elected to keep Bob. Even this summer, named in the Under-21 Euros team of the tournament alongside the likes of Livramento, alongside the likes of Elliot Anderson and Harvey Elliott, who was named player of the tournament too. There is so much quality there for James McAtee. I feel like Tierno Barry would really thrive off the balls that McAtee would be able to find, the crosses he'd be able to find as well. And McAtee, Iliman Ndiaye, Tierno Barry, it feels suddenly like a mid-table Premier League side attack, and I would be really, really excited to see them in action. Bring him in, Everton. Bring him in. In at 4, this is the shot of the video. I think Juventus should look at Gabriel Martinelli. Now, when was the last time that Juventus made a signing that made you go, wow, really, really took your breath away? I feel like I was very hot on Teun Koopmeiners from Atalanta. I like Khéphren Thuram's move. I like Francisco Conceição, his initial loan move, being made permanent this year as well. But I think I'd probably have to go back to 2019 and Matthijs de Ligt signing from Ajax to really go, Juventus have signed a really, really top player here in their prime who can instantly elevate that side. And I think Gabriel Martinelli could be that man. There has been speculation this summer linking him with a move to Saudi Arabian side Al Nassr. Would Arsenal be willing to sell? Let's dissect it. Let's explore the situation. Do I think Juventus would have the money to persuade Arsenal to sign him this late in the window? No. If I'm being totally honest, absolutely not. They've already signed Francisco Conceição, they brought in Di Gregorio permanently, Colulo, Nico Gonzalez, all these loans that they made last year, they've had to make permanent as well. They would have spent a considerable amount on Jonathan David's agent fees, on his wages as well. So Gabriel Martinelli does feel like a bit of a long shot. And look, I've got massive respect for Gabriel Martinelli. I think he's had a phenomenal time at Arsenal. Yes, a bit of a dampener in the last 2 years where he's averaged 0.3 goals and assists per game across his last 95 appearances. I don't think that's personally good enough to win a Premier League, to win a Champions League on the left-hand side. But let's not forget that this is a player that was signed as a teenager from Serie D, from Ituano in Brazil, and to have operated to the level he had. That year he scored 15 league goals in 22-23 in the Premier League. He deserves nothing but respect. 18 goals and 11 assists in his last 95 games for Arsenal across the last 2 seasons. I just don't think that's quite good enough for where Arsenal are at right now, having invested so heavily in their striking position across their midfield, across their defence. And maybe the arrival of Zubimendi, a player quite akin to Granit Xhaka in terms of his passing from deep, who thrived in 22-23, playing alongside Granit Xhaka, who was able to find him in that space between right back and centre back. Maybe that improves his numbers, but I have my doubts. Last season, he created 18 fewer chances than Bukayo Saka, who played 600 fewer minutes due to injury. He averaged 2.9 shot creating actions per 90. That was the same as Andy Robertson, who's now been moved on by Liverpool, or at least moved out of the first 11 picture. That was less than Mateo Kovacic. His contract expires in 2027. They do have an option of a further year, but if Juventus somehow found £50 million, I think Arsenal should accept that. It's a massive upturn in the investment they made and paid for from Ituano, and it would allow you to sign that really elite left winger that I think could elevate this side beyond all belief, who, as I mentioned in the lowdown last week, I think it would be Rafa Leao. But Martinelli, I don't see this transfer happening, but he's got a huge season ahead because those numbers last year, I'm afraid they're not good enough for where Arsenal are at right now. In at 3, let's talk about a centre-back for Chelsea. Now, Chelsea's centre-backs going into next season: Colwill, Fofana, Tosin, Chalobah, Badiashile, Disasi, Gilchrist. Do we think this is a title-winning set of centre-backs? I have my massive doubts about that. Do we think their goalkeeper is title-winning quality as well? Again, on the lowdown last week, I was talking about Diogo Costa and what a smart signing I think he could be for Chelsea. But in the centre-back area, I think they are weak. And look, I really like Wesley Fofana as a player, but he's been there for 3 years now and he's played 34 games due to injury. 34 in 3 years for a £70 million plus signing. It's not good enough. I think they should look for another centre-back, and I think they should look at Brighton's Paul van Hecke. Now, I get what you're saying, it's not necessarily the sexiest signing, but I think it makes a lot of sense. He signed for Brighton back in 2020 from NAC Breda. He then goes back to the Eredivisie with Heerenveen, then he goes to Blackburn the following year. He plays pretty well in the Championship, well, very well. He's actually named Blackburn Player of the Season, and he's been starting regularly, pretty much week in, week out for Brighton for the last 2 seasons. And in that time, he's really shone. Last season, he ranked 6th for passes completed in the entire Premier League, which put him between Ruben Diaz and Moises Caicedo. He ranked 5th for passes into the final third as well. This is a guy who I think elevates Chelsea's passing from the back in a way that Trevor Chalobah, Tosin, Fofana can't do. And I think Colwill and Van Hecke have the potential to be a really, really strong centre-back pairing. And I don't know why Chelsea are so averse to signing someone with a little bit more Premier League experience in these crucial positions. I think Van Hecke and Colwill, with Reece James on the right-hand side, Hato and Cucurella on the left-hand side, Hato also covering centrally as well, Gusto covering Reece James. Suddenly that looks like a really, really high-quality defence, which I think is worthy of the team. Do I think this transfer is going to happen? Probably not, but he's only got 2 years remaining on his contract. Brighton have already signed Boscagli this year. They brought in Coppola as well from Serie A. They've still got Lewis Dunk, who they clearly want to move on from eventually. Do Brighton sell with a few weeks of the window to go? Probably not. But do I think Van Hecke is the sort of profile that Chelsea should be thinking about? Absolutely. In at 2, let's talk about Aleksandro Ribeiro and a potential move to Liverpool. Now, Liverpool's top centre-back target appears to be Marc Guehi, and I totally get that. Marc Guehi is acclimatised to the Premier League and he's an England international. He's probably going to start for England at the next World Cup, and his performances at Euro 2024, where he was probably England's best player, suggest that he's probably ready for a step up. but Aleksandro Ribeiro from Lille feels like a real Michael Edwards signing. He's a 25-year-old centre-back that can play on either side of the defence. He's really two-footed. He's broken into the Brazil squad recently, and 3 years ago he was playing for Chaves in the Portuguese second tier, but he's now had 3 years at Lille. His game time has gone up incrementally each season, and he's proven to be a really smart addition. He completed 77 passes per game last season. For context, Van Dijk was at 73. His progressive passes, 5.1, Van Dijk at 5.4. He wins over 60% of his ground duels. He wins over 70% of his aerial duels. This is a player that was linked with Arsenal a few weeks ago, prior to them signing Christian Mosquera. He was supposedly viewed as the perfect long-term replacement for Gabriel. So it would be, again, strengthening yourself whilst weakening a rival in terms of their potential future deals. And look, I think this is a signing that doesn't come in and upset the apple cart. He could learn from Van Dijk. He could learn from Ibrahim Konate for a year. He's still only 25. I think he's absolutely perfect for Liverpool. In at 1, I want to talk about Fermin Lopez and his future. I'll let you in on a little secret. I was going to suggest James Maddison to Borussia Dortmund, but James Maddison has picked up a really serious injury in pre-season in the last few days. Absolutely devastated for him. But I think my logic there was he doesn't seem to be that high up the Spurs pecking order. They've already signed Mohamed Kudus. They were looking to bring in Morgan Gibbs-White. I think James Maddison potentially could have been gettable, but instead I want to talk about Fermin Lopez to the club that I was going to suggest James Maddison for, Borussia Dortmund. Fermin Lopez is only 22, but he's already been playing regularly for Barcelona for the last 2 seasons. He's played 88 games for the first team. He scored 19 goals and got 11 assists. Considering most of those minutes are off the bench, really impressive. In fact, last year he averaged a goal and an assist in La Liga every 113 minutes. For context, Lamine Yamal won every 130. Last season he averaged over 3 shots per 90, over 0.7 expected goals and assists per 90. That was the same as Jamal Musiala. That was the same as Desiree Doué, who of course playing more minutes than Fermin Lopez, but it does speak to his potential. This is a guy that can play in central midfield. He can play as a 10. He can even play off the left. And there is an argument that Barcelona don't really need him going forward. They've got Pedri, they've got Gavi, they've got Dani Olmo, they've just signed Marcus Rashford. Where are the minutes for Fermin Lopez next season? Fermin Lopez has got a contract until 2029, but if Borussia Dortmund somehow found 40-50 million pounds, I think Barcelona would be tempted given their situation with financial fair play. And look, Fermin Lopez offers a lot of creativity. That side is crying out for creativity. Julian Brandt feels like the end is nigh for him at Borussia Dortmund. His contract's running out soon. They need to look beyond him. They need more creativity. Fermin Lopez, that technical security on their ball, versatility as well. I think Niko Kovac would absolutely love him at Borussia Dortmund. So guys, that was 10 bargain transfers your club should complete before the deadline. Let me know what you guys thought of that. What did I miss out? What should I have included instead? Let me know in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like it. Please subscribe to the channel and let me know what you'd like me to cover next week as the Premier League nears its return. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Love you all. Bye bye.